to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam as I make an attempt to get out of this parking lot because this asshole in a giant truck decided to back in next to me and I couldn't get out of the spot without risking killing someone. Just saw Thor: Love and Thunder. I have a few problems with this movie. So I'm just going to play the spoiler warning now. Because a lot of the problems with the movie are going to end up spoiling it. Beyond the fact that, we're doing our usual spoiler discussion of Thor: Love and Thunder. Okay, let's talk about the technical things first. There are a lot of times where the effects aren't great in the movie. And there are also a lot of times when the effects are good. The times where the effects aren't great tend to happen in fight sequences, and I don't know if anyone else has criticized really the fact that they're not great looking in fights. But that is a bit of a problem. Also, there's a number of janky edits in this movie that I'm like, well, why the fuck was that edited that way? And it's just kind of not great for the movie on a purely technical level. Those are some issues I have with this movie. My problem is, I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie in the last 6 months. I've seen this movie in the last 6 months put out by Marvel Studios. It is virtually the identical plot to Multiverse of Madness, where you got a bad guy who had a personal tragedy involving the loss of his children, or child in this case, because Gore only lost one kid. He seeks out to, in this case, get revenge, in Wanda's case, be reunited with her kids. So they team up with a sentient ancient weapon that corrupts them for its own personal use. In Wanda's case, the weapon, of course, is the Darkhold. In the case of Gore, it's the Necro Sword. He goes out, and his goal is the sword. In this case, where in WandaVision, or not WandaVision, in Multiverse of Madness, the goal is to go and corrupt the entire multiverse. Here it is get to eternity to destroy the universe and kill all the gods. It's the same fucking plot. It's the same thing. And the thing is, too, down to the fact that there's a cool sequence in the middle of the movie where we're introducing a bunch of really cool characters, and then a big fight breaks out there, because shit doesn't go right. Because that happens in Multiverse of Madness on Earth 838, when they go and they meet with the Illuminati, and here it happens. Fortunately, it's not Gore who comes in and fucking butchers everyone. It's Thor fighting against all of all of the guards of Omnipotent City, but it's kind of the same thing. The fact that this movie and Multiverse of Madness came out not just in the same year, but maybe had they been broken up by another movie in between and make this less obvious. And then down to the fucking post-credit scene. The first post-credit scene in Multiverse of Madness is the arrival of Clea being like, going to the hero, what you did in this movie means that I'm going to be here for the next movie. And then in the same thing here, it's like Zeus didn't die, Zeus just gets stabbed and he's okay after, and he's like, I want you to get revenge. And he sends that fucking Hercules, who, by the way, played by Brett Goldstein, which is great casting, but still. And then it's both movies even have a fucking, very small blink and you miss it cameo of, the fucking Living Tribunal. There's a lot here going on that I've seen already by this studio in this movie. It's oh my god, I'm just baffled by that. Maybe had it not been for the production delays in Black Panther, maybe they would have flipped the two movies and put Black Panther first, but Black Panther got bogged down in production delays, and it's not like they could have moved up Quantumania or the Marvels to meet that. But it's what the fuck? I don't think it's And the thing is, too, it's like, I know it sounds like I'm coming down on Love and Thunder for this, but I think had Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder been flipped, I would have had the same complaints about Multiverse of Madness. It just so happens that this movie's getting the short straw, and this one is the one that is the one that came second. And then it's like the whole thing where I totally get what they're going for in this, where they're trying to juxtapose Jane's dependence on the hammer, keeping her alive, while the same with Gore, so she has to similarly sacrifice herself. But what the I understand that's what they're going for, but why would you go through all of this to introduce Jane as Thor just to kill her off at the end of the movie? And then the post-credit scene, it's not even well, she might come back. It's and here she is in Valhalla with Heimdall. I don't understand why, I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't... Look, I understand we're playing with the multiverse now, and if they ever want to bring back Jane as Thor, there's an entire multiverse of Thors out there. They can bring it back. But for the sake of this movie, the only reason that Jane is there is because she's the love interest to Thor. And it's I feel like there's a better way to do this, because, you can do basically the same movie with a slight rewrite and have it be Beta Ray Bill or fucking Throg or fucking boastful Loki from fucking Loki, and it would work just the same. With a minor rewrite to change that, and it's fuck, it could have been Loki. It could have been Loki, and it could have worked just as well. There's no reason to introduce Jane in this movie if you're just going to kill her off at the end, if you're not going to introduce her to go forward. It makes zero sense to me why that was the decision here. And then on top of it, too, it's the whole thing where it's the rewrite around why the hammer goes to Jane pisses me off, too. Because there is no reason why using the same thing that fucking Odin put on it in Thor wouldn't also work. Why does it gotta be fucking Thor puts a new enchantment on it, protect Jane, and if he doesn't... It's one of those things where it's there are so many little things in this movie that get under my skin where I'm what the fuck? And then the entire thematic look around it of, oh, this is meant to be an 80s, heavy metal, 80s, or, 80s hair metal, I guess we would, say. It's meant to look like that, and I can respect that. I totally get that. I like the vibe it's going for, but, I don't know. There's so many things that could have gone better with this movie that for everything to have failed the way it did. It's not the worst Thor movie, but that's only because there were two really shitty Thor movies before Ragnarok. I don't know. Look, it got me pumped for Guardians next May, and the Christmas special this winter, if I remember correctly. I want to see more of the Guardians, but that's not what we're doing. That should, again, this is the second movie this year, and they've only had two movies, where the most successful thing that they've done with it has been okay, so what's coming next? That's not a good thing. After a certain point, if I'm not the only one who feels this way, you're going to start losing people. Because if you're going to keep sitting here and being oh, well, in the future we might do this. This is my problem with DC films, too. DC had this problem for a long time, where it's okay, well, the next time we're going to introduce this thing you're going to really like. Which one was the one where they introduced the costume at the end? And you're well, what the fuck? Why didn't you do that from the beginning? Oh, no. You know what it was? It was the X-Men movies, not DC. Where it's every X-Men movie, after a certain point, was we're going to introduce this cool thing next time. Come back next time. Come back next time. Come back next time. It's at a certain point, you got to give me something now. Otherwise, there's not going to be a next time. And look, Chris Hemsworth obviously having a blast in this movie, and he's great as Thor, and all of that. But what the fuck? And the thing is, too, the movie's only an hour and 50 minutes, or an hour and 50 and change, or an hour 50 and change. It's like, I want to say like an hour 58, an hour 59. So it's under 2 hours, clocking in under 2 hours with credits. By the time you walk out of the theater, excluding previews, you have spent an hour and 59 minutes watching this movie. There's definitely more you could have done. And especially, for no other reason than to just pad out the time between, like, a comedic scene and a dramatic scene. I said it when I saw the second trailer. When I saw the second trailer, I said this was going to happen. There's going to be a tonal whiplash in this movie, because they're not going to allow enough time between the emotional depth scenes and the scenes where, you know, we're back to Thor being funny. Like, it is so fucking, like, bizarre. And it's like, how the fuck is it that apparent in the second trailer? And I'm just, like, baffled by this. And I've been accused of being a shill for Marvel, so hopefully this will alleviate that a little bit. Because I'm just like, what the fuck? What the ever-loving fuck happened here? And maybe it was... And the thing is, too, there were sequences that went on way too long. Like, I don't need... Like, the sequence in the first movie, in the first Taika-directed movie, where they have the stage play of, like, what happened in the Dark World, it didn't feel like it went on as long as this one did. Like, I'm all for bringing back Sam Neill and Matt Damon and Luke Hemsworth and all the other people. I'm all for doing that, by all means. But just the scene went on way too long, and it's like, there are so many things like that where it goes on too long. Like, I would say even the sequence where Star-Lord and where Thor is leaving the crew of the Guardians goes on too long. Like, that sequence in the beginning of the movie goes on for a good minute, 2 minutes longer than it needs to. Like, where it's like, Thor's like, I will give you my ship, and it's the fucking Benatar, and it's like, yeah, that's not your ship to give away. And it's like, alright, the first joke is funny, the first time you do that, where it's like, I will give you my ship, that's funny. And then you do it again and again and again. And it's like, the screaming goats thing was funny the first few times with the fucking goats screaming, but after like the fourth or fifth time you pull that joke out with the goats screaming at an inopportune time, or while they're doing something they're just screaming, it starts to lose its comedic value. And again, it can undercut emotional moments. Like, the moment where, you know, Jane, Valkyrie, and Thor arrive at the Shadow Realm, or whatever the fuck it was called, like, at that moment, when they arrive there, and you know, the color is drained out, because that's a really cool and a very comic-centric idea, where it's like, we're in this place, so we're going to drain the color. There's no color there. Like, and them getting there, and then them hitting the side of the planet, and the goats screaming, I'm like, this is a fucking episode of Rick and Morty now. Like, and it's not even like it's a joke, where it's like, that exact thing is an episode of Rick and Morty, where in the finale of season 2, and the only reason this is fresh in my memory, I probably would have remembered it anyway, but the only reason this is especially fresh in my memory is I just rewatched that show, and then you get, like, you know, where it's like they're looking for the other planet to do. It's like, oh, look, this one looks like Earth. Let's go down and take a look. And then they go in and take a look, and they hit the side of it. And it's like, well, alright, cool. Like, I don't know. I just, I really didn't like this movie. I really didn't. I mean, look, maybe it's the worst of the Phase 4 movies so far. For me, Marvel has had such a hot streak. Because it's like, and again, me personally, I really liked Eternals. I know a lot of people did not like Eternals, and I completely valid. People think that movie's too long. I completely understand that criticism. Awkward sex scene between Icarus and Cersei, totally warranted criticism. Totally get it. But I really like that movie. I think it's very well done, and you know, I really like the you know, the whole thing with the Celestials and all that. I love that movie. I really like that movie. I liked Black Widow to a lesser extent. I liked, you know, Shang-Chi. I liked Multiverse of Madness. And I do wonder, maybe had this movie come first, would I be as nitpicky about it? What percentage of me not liking this movie comes from the fact that I have just seen this movie? And not even just seen this movie because I saw it back in May when it came out, but like it just came out on Disney Plus, so I watched it again. As evidenced by, if you go over to the stream for 30-minute reviews, I did a second review of it on 30-minute reviews for, oh look, it is now on streaming. Let me talk about this movie again. Because, search engine optimization, and I would like to make ad revenue from it, so let me fucking milk Disney for whatever dollar I can pull out of it. And, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, there's so much in this movie that just, for me, didn't work, and it's like, maybe a good amount of Ragnarok working was because you get, and the whole thing with the fucking hammer as an X, that bothered me too. The hammer being the X is like, again, it feels like one little bit that was funny in Ragnarok. It's like, okay, let's do an entire multi-minute sequence multiple times through this movie with this same bit. And it's like, I don't think that's necessarily a great idea. I understand what they're going for, and making Stormbreaker be kind of jealous of that, I understand, but whatever. I liked that Eternity looked like he did in the fucking comics. I mean, I'll give it that. I liked that. That was cool. But I don't know. I didn't like this movie. Not a fan. And it's like, again, it comes down to, why would you go through the effort to do, like, I understand why. It's because you're not going to sign Natalie Portman to a multi-picture contract, or one of those golden shackle contracts, and then you got to sit here, or do what you did with Oscar Isaac, where it's a lot of money on the back end, and then you got to sit there and renegotiate every time they want to come back with Moon Knight. But I don't know. Like, it doesn't make sense to do that with, like, I can see them doing that with Moon Knight, because Moon Knight's a smaller character and will likely have a smaller role going forward. So it's like, fuck, if we gotta renegotiate for a season 2 with Oscar Isaac, then we'll do that. Or we want to renegotiate for him to make an appearance in the Halloween special, or if we want to make an appearance in Blade, or if we want him to make an appearance somewhere else, we'll renegotiate that contract when that time comes. But Thor's a major player going forward. That's the only reason I can think of, and it's like, let's do this once, let's get this done, and let's move on. And then worst case scenario, if we ever want to bring back Jane as Thor, we can, have America poof one in from another multiverse, from another universe, and hope for the best there. I just don't like the decision to do that, and I especially don't like the fact that, this whole movie is focused around the fact that she's only doing that because it's like she is there to provide a foil. Her entire purpose in this movie is to die. Like, that is her role in this movie. Her role in this movie is to die so that way Gore can learn a lesson. I don't think that's going to be well received by subsets of the internet when this movie gets widely seen. I don't know. And also, I think the thing is, too, we just came off of, like, I think now if we went back and looked at, if we went back and looked at Ragnarok, I wonder how well the comedy would carry over. Maybe it was just the fact that, well, number one, we have Thor coming off of 2 incredibly serious and dour movies that were not very good. So now we get this, and this one works different, and that maybe that's part of it. Maybe the other part is, if we look at, how have I only done 100 miles driving since Sunday? That's weird. Maybe if we look at, like, since we've seen him now go through a more complex arc and deal with more emotionally complex moments in Infinity War and Endgame, maybe seeing that and then going back and watching Ragnarok, maybe it doesn't hold up as well. I don't know. I'm not watching Ragnarok tonight. I'm not doing that tonight. I started watching. I watched before sunrise, so I'm gonna watch the second one. I think it's before sunset. Second one. I think I'm gonna watch that tonight. But I don't know. I feel like there's definitely something went wrong here. And I'm probably gonna end up seeing this movie again. My brother's gonna want to see it, so I'm gonna end up taking him to the movies to go see it. But I feel like there is something didn't happen the way it was supposed to here. Like, maybe it was just they were banking too much on, like, leaning in, like, and that's the thing about Ragnarok too. Ragnarok had some funny moments, but this feels like Age of Ultron to the Avengers, where, you know, the Avengers had some serious moments to it, and it had a lot of lighthearted moments too, and then they leaned too far into the jokey aspect of it. So the emotional moments didn't quite land the way they were supposed to in Age of Ultron. And I feel like maybe we're at the same thing here, where this is that, and maybe the next Thor movie will be better. The way Infinity War was to Age of Ultron, but who knows? That's just speculation on my part. But we'll wrap up there for today, because I'm hungry and I'm getting home now, and I would like to eat dinner. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not thrilled by this movie. Not thrilled by this movie at all. I feel like there was definitely room for improvement, and you know, I don't know. Well, we'll see how it, we'll see how it holds up. Maybe after I see it the second time, I'll find a newfound love for it, but I highly doubt that. I do very highly doubt that. And then, especially if I watch it on streaming, I'm not gonna end up liking it more. Like, anytime I watch a movie at home, I end up infinitely more critical of it than when I watched it on, which, I mean, that may have been the reason why, Multiverse of Madness ended up dipping out of the top, the top 5 for the mid-year, which we'll be doing on Saturday. So that will be going up on Saturday, so get ready for that. But until our next episode, which will, I don't know, probably end up being the mid-year top 5, have a great rest